What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Draft Hub. Today is going to be a little bit different of a Monday upload than usual. Obviously, usually I am uploading my weekly mock draft for the 2026 NFL draft. But today, it is the beginning of Conference Championship week. So we have to dive into every single conference championship game. So initially, I planned on doing this as a single video for each conference championship. But then I figured this week is incredibly busy for me. I have a promotional test at work this week, so I'm stressing out like crazy. So I figured I would condense it into one big video. It's also just easier for people to watch it all at the same time. So we are going to be doing it like that, and it's also kind of I go from group of five to power four. Obviously, that's how I feel like it should go. And I have my X factor for why I think what team will win. And then, of course, I have my prediction. And we're going to talk about each game for a little bit. But before we get into it, if you are new to the channel, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel on this video here. Like I mentioned, I do weekly mock drafts. I do prospect profiles, NFL draft, gem shorts. I do college football content. Obviously, what is going to come after these videos is going to be playoff predictions and all that kind of stuff. So if you are into that kind of content, I upload every single day. I do not miss a day. And obviously, if you're watching this, you like college football. So a lot of college football content coming. I've done a lot of college football content in the last couple weeks or so. My FCS playoff predictions, my 10, 12 quarterbacks that I think that are going to transfer and where they should go. So there's a lot of college football content coming up. So you don't want to miss it. So let's get into the conferences here. The first one I have here is the Conference USA championship game between, surprise, surprise, Kennesaw State and Jacksonville State. So, I mean, just an unbelievable second season for Kennesaw State, for the Owls, after coming up last year and really not looking all that spectacular. One thing that a lot of people did say, a lot of experts did say, is watch out for Kennesaw State in Conference USA this year because it is they have experience. Their roster had a ton of experience. Not a lot of guys transferred out. They were able to grow into that Conference USA style of football. So I think that helped them out immensely. Not only that, it was just a weird year overall for Conference USA. I feel like you had a big time tie at the top. I feel like in terms of teams that could have made the conference championship game. I believe Kennesaw State was tied with Western Kentucky as well. That's a team that usually always makes the Conference USA championship game. So there was a lot going on. I believe that they were tied as well with overall record with Missouri State. That was a fantastic first season in the FBS for them as well. I mean, just overall, you had Sam Houston State that was 9-3 last year. They went 1-11. It was just a very strange year for Conference USA, but strange in a good way. I mean, look at the standings were awesome. That's what you love to see. Delaware was a 6-6 team. Missouri State was 8-4. You love to see teams making their debut seasons and doing it like that. So the big thing for me here, and I have it here, the Gamecocks rushing attack. So these two played not that long ago. Two things happened. Kennesaw State wasn't really able to move the ball on the ground. And they also weren't able to stop the Gamecocks on the ground. So if you take away, in the FBS, if you take away all Army-based, I don't want to say Army, all forces teams, so if you take away Air Force, if you take away Navy, if you take away Army, the best rushing attack in the FBS was actually Jacksonville State. So they ran all over Kennesaw State in the first meeting. They've been here before. They are a team that ever since coming up from the FCS to the FBS, has had a decent amount of success. I think that Kennesaw State, I don't want to say the moment will be too big for them. I think they lack experience in this area. And I just don't think that they are going to be able to stop that Jacksonville State offense and that rushing attack, really. I mean, things could change. The game plan could 100% change, but on the flip side, I don't really know if Kennesaw State's going to be able to move the ball as effectively as I would like against this Jacksonville State Gamecocks defense. So I think it's going to be kind of the same as what we saw from the regular season. I think it will be a close game, but I think at the end of the day, the experience and the overall wear down of the rushing attack on this Kennesaw State defensive front is going to just prove too much, and I think Jacksonville State do win Conference USA this year. Then you have the Sun Belt. So again, first off, I already know that this is an old James Madison logo, but this logo is super awesome. So I love using retro logos, old logos, fan art logos, all that kind of stuff. So Troy is a little bit of a surprise in my opinion. I think in my preseason predictions, I think I had Troy at 6-6 or something along those lines. And of course I had JMU in the conference championship game. Another stellar season for them. 11-1. Alonzo Barnett, another great season. The defense. The defense is really what I think is just kind of going to separate JMU from Troy here. The number one overall rushing defense in the Sun Belt, the number one overall pass defense in the Sun Belt belongs to JMU. And Troy is a team that damn, they've been scrappy all season long. I mean, they put together a very impressive resume this year, 8-4. I really didn't think that was going to happen, and they're here, and they're here. I really did think it was going to be JMU versus Texas State. Texas State kind of floundered in their final season in the Sun Belt, but the Troy Trojans, man, they are not a pushover. I just think this is going to be. I don't want to say a little too easy, but I think this is going to be kind of going through the motions for JMU because I think that Alonzo Barnett is going to be able to pass all over this Troy Trojans defense. I think they're not going to be able to score with the Dukes as well. I think if Troy does crack that number one defense, I think it's going to be few and far between. And it's not going to be able to keep pace with the way that JMU is going to be able to score. The running attack is really good too. Passing, obviously, Alonzo Barnett is one of the better dual threat quarterbacks in the FBS and probably the overall best quarterback in the Sun Belt. Watch out for him to transfer this year too. With 2 years left of eligibility, I wouldn't be surprised if he moves up to a Power 4 conference. So really, the defense is the X factor for me in this game for the Sun Belt championship game, and really JMU just kind of continue to dominate the Sun Belt for the most part. But Troy is a team that, again, I'm super excited that they were able to be here. It's I like to see a lot of different teams make it year in and year out, and Troy I think will be a worthy opponent for JMU. But I think the experience and just the overall the sheer ability of that defense is just going to be a little bit too much for Troy. So I do have JMU winning the Sun Belt and probably making the college football playoffs. If they do win the Sun Belt at 11-1, they'll be 12-1, and they will probably be the best or at least the highest ranked group of 5 team, and they will make the playoffs. That will be an exciting team to see in the playoffs. So I'm excited for that. Moving on, we have the MAC. The MAC championship game between Western Michigan and Miami of Ohio. Man, this is again, another game that we saw in the season already. And it wasn't the most fruitful game for Brock Lowry and the Western Michigan Broncos. Again, this is also a matchup of 2 pretty awesome logos for the most part as well. I love logos, and this is a sick matchup of logos. But Western Michigan have heavily relied on their rushing attack this season. And really the second half of the season, they came alive. They really, after the Miami of Ohio loss, I believe they won out, and they won very, very convincingly. But the Redhawks' run defense is the best in the MAC, and it proved to be too much for them in the first meeting. Brock Lowry did not have a very efficient day. The running attack overall didn't have a very efficient day. And DeQuan Finn was good against this Western Michigan defense. I believe he had 260 passing yards and a touchdown. He added 50 rushing yards and a touchdown as well. The dual threat ability of DeQuan Finn is going to be a lot for this Western Michigan Broncos defense to handle. And kind of a similar trend with these first few championship games. I just think one team is going to be able to stop the other team at a more frequent pace. I think that Miami will be able to score relatively on almost every single drive that they have, and Western Michigan are a team that their offense kind of runs through their running attack. And if the running attack isn't performing the way that they're up to their standards, rather, I don't think that the Broncos can win this MAC championship game off the arm of Brock Lowry. So this is good. And also, DeQuan Finn has been here before with a different team. He's been here with Toledo before. He knows what it takes to win a MAC championship. So I think the experience overall for this Miami Redhawks team and their very, very solid defense overall, they've had one of the best defenses in the MAC for the last 3+ years or so, and they've been here before. This Western Michigan team is a little bit of a surprise. I didn't expect them. I thought they were going to have a good season. I think I had them at either 6-6 or 7-5. There was a little bit of a log jam at the top of the MAC. I think you had three teams all tied for that second spot in the MAC championship game, and the Western Michigan Broncos did get it. I think they actually clinched their spot before the Redhawks did. So a little bit of a logjam at the top. We love to see it towards the end of a season. We love to see a logjam. We love to see everything decided, on that last week. I believe almost every single championship game was decided on the last week, except for James Madison. I think they were the only team that made it with like a week to spare before the season ended. But this Western Michigan team has a great base to be good for at least the next few years and beyond. This Redhawks team is a team that we've seen been good for the last couple of years, and they're able to build on that strong base that they do have on their roster. And I think adding DeQuan Finn was that last piece that they were missing. I know last year Ohio won the MAC, and before that was Toledo. So this Miami Redhawk team is going to beat Western Michigan, in my opinion, in this one. I just think that the overall play of DeQuan Finn and the overall run defense is going to catapult them to victory here and be the 2025-26 MAC champions. Moving on, we have the American Athletic Conference, and this is, to be quite honest with you guys, this is the championship game that I do believe I am most excited for. So let's look on the Tulane side here. So Tulane actually have one of the worst pass defenses in the FBS. I believe that they are giving up, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, it's somewhere in the range of that 265 plus passing yards a game. So you have Drew Mestamaker on the other side, who thrives off of bad pass defense. This is a old school gunslinger. And not only that, the Tulane run defense also is about 57th in the FBS in terms of win rate. And then you have freshman sensation Caleb Hawkins, who is fresh off of, a 1,400 plus yard, 20 plus touchdown season. I think this North Texas offense is going to be too much for this Tulane defense. Now, on the flip side, I do think Jake Retzlaff and co are going to be able to score on this North Texas defense. This is going to be a shootout. I would be very surprised if we see less than 80 points scored in this game. And I truly mean that, because this North Texas offense has the means, no pun intended, to be able to score over 50 points a game easy on this Tulane defense. And then Tulane have the ability to score kind of at will on this North Texas defense. So this is like a beautiful blend of North Texas having a fantastic offense and a really, really bad defense for the most part. It is a little bit more improved than it was last year. In 2024, North Texas gave up about 33.6 points per game. I think that they are a little bit better. I think they're still hovering around that 30 points per game range, so not too much better, a slight improvement. But Tulane, are a team actually coming into this rank. They're ranked 24th in the country. North Texas is a team that I think has been just a tad disrespected this year. I know that their schedule, this is easily going to be the hardest game that they have to play this season. But I think that this kind of lines up perfectly, and Drew, the legend of Drew Mestamaker will continue to grow. Eric Morris is on his way out as well, agreeing to a deal to become Oklahoma State's new head coach. So I think that they're going to go out with a bang. I think Mestamaker also is a player that is probably going to be transferring, and it's kind of heartbreak for Tulane, because Tulane, John Sumrall is leaving as well, and he leaves with back-to-back AAC championship game appearances, but, 2 losses. They lost to Army last year. And I do believe that North Texas, even though that they've played a soft schedule up until this point, and this will be their toughest test, I certainly think that they are up for the challenge. I think that the poor pass defense from Tulane, I think Mestamaker is going to eat in this poor. I would honestly look to see Mestamaker have about 350 plus passing yards and about 3 or 4 touchdowns against this Tulane defense, and really propel this North Texas team. So again, I really think that group of 5 spot is going to come down to either North Texas, or it's going to be North Texas, or JMU is going to be that spot, because they will have similar records. But I think JMU's season is a little bit more impressive. I think that their resume is a little bit more impressive than North Texas. But hey, man, if they get the job done against the number 24 Green Wave, I think that they have a legitimate shot. But I think that Mestamaker, they go into this AAC championship game kind of sort of with nothing to lose and kind of sort of with a chip on their shoulder because people don't think that they could score with teams of the caliber of Tulane. And I do think that Mestamaker can win this game purely on his shoulders. Moving on, you have the Mountain West Championship game, and you have UNLV against Boise State. This was the only championship game prediction that I got right. Maybe. No, I got two right. I got the SEC champ. I think I had Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship game. So, yeah, okay. All right, I got two of them. Not too bad. That's what 22.2%, whatever. Not too bad. Let's see yours. But we have the Mountain West Championship game here between the UNLV Rebels and the Boise State Broncos here. I think the big X factor here is the passing offense because Maddox Madsen last year had over 3,000 passing yards. He only played in 9 games this year, wasn't even able to eclipse 2,000 passing yards, just slightly under, I believe, 1,994. Really, Boise State's offense was kind of catapulted through their run game. And what I'm looking for here, we mentioned Tulane having one of the worst pass defenses in the country. UNLV is right there up there, too. I believe they have a bottom 25 pass defense. And I expect Maddox Madsen, he is someone that can sling the rock. He is someone that definitely can win the game on his shoulders. And I think UNLV is going to be they're going to be stacking the box with 8 in the box. I think that they are going to be able to pass all over this UNLV defense. I mean, the defense is up. The run defense isn't great either. I don't really know any noteworthy players for the most part on the defensive side, or at least I shouldn't say I don't know any noteworthy players. I should say I don't know anyone who had a truly noteworthy season on the defensive side for UNLV. And, Boise State was able to put 56 on them in the meeting that they had in the regular season too. So, I don't think that it's going to be any problems for this Boise State team here against UNLV. I expected a little bit more out of UNLV this year, especially on the defensive side. Anthony Calandria actually had a very good season, very solid season. So I expect this to be a high scoring game. I believe that game was 56-35 or something like that. It was a high scoring game. So I expect this to be a little bit of a high scoring championship game as well. But I just think Boise State's offense is just going to be too much for this UNLV defense, and I don't think that they're going to be able to really keep up. I know they can score. They could score pretty much at will, this UNLV team, but I don't think that they'll be able to get many stops, if any, against this Boise State offense. So I am taking the Boise State Broncos in this one, and they might be up there as well as a team that might find themselves in the college football playoffs yet again. As we know, last year, they went to Happy Valley. They did get their butts kicked by Penn State last year, but be that as it may, it looks like they might be wrapping up a spot in the championship in the playoffs yet again. And you have the ACC championship game, and admittedly, I am not nearly as excited for the ACC championship game as I really thought I was going to be, because I feel like this is a little bit with the caliber of teams in the ACC. I feel like this is a little bit of an underwhelming championship game. You have Duke, who at 7-5 somehow made it to the ACC championship game. I will go as far to say that, is there a scenario where, don't the champions of the Power 4 conferences get an automatic bid to the playoffs? Because how does a 7-5 Duke, who might shock Virginia, how did they make the playoffs over some other teams like a JMU or a North Texas or one of those group of 5 teams that had a really, really good season? Like, how do you let that happen? So that is going to be certainly an interesting prospect if that does happen. I don't think it will. Virginia have the 6th best defense in the entire country, not to mention the 3rd most handsiest defense in the country. And what I mean by that is they break up passes at an unbelievable rate. Now, you could argue that Darian Mensah's worst game for Duke this year was against this Virginia Cavaliers team. And I don't think that they're going to make it easier on him. They're going to make it easy on him. I believe he had a 33.3 overall QBR in that game. That was easily his worst of the season. And I think it's going to be more of the same. This Virginia Cavaliers team is a team that I have been doubting all season. I did think I had them as bowl eligible. I obviously did not have them winning or even being in the ACC championship game. This was a team that I thought was going to coast off of the first half of their schedule and then kind of come crashing back down to earth in the second half of their schedule, and they didn't. And their defense is really the reason why. They have as solid as a defense as any team in the country, and I think that they're going to give Darian Mensah fits. And Mensah is so solid. He is so awesome. I think that if he were to declare for the 2026 NFL draft, I do think that Mensah would be a first round pick at this point. And I think he should stay and go in 2027. But he would be the only reason why this would potentially be a game. On the defensive side, you obviously have some studs. You have Chandler Rivers, who's a absolute stud. I don't know if Terry Moore is back, to be honest with you. I don't think that he is, but that would be a studly duo in the secondary here for Duke. But they could hold their own, that's for sure. I don't think this is going to be a blowout by any means because Virginia doesn't have an incredibly inspiring offense, even though they do have Chandler Morris, who obviously has made their offense that much better. They don't have a score at will type of offense, but I just think that this defense is really going to be able to clamp down on Mensah, and they're going to give him fits like they did in the previous meeting. So give me the Virginia Cavaliers to win the ACC and really kind of be a surprise ACC champion this year. Moving on, we have the Big 12 championship game. We have BYU and Texas Tech. And I will give it to you guys. Whoever is somehow here from my predictions video, I did say that BYU was going to go 6-6, and I really didn't. I wasn't very inspired by them. I thought them losing Jake Retzlaff was kind of going to be the end. And man, Bear Backmeyer really, really had a fantastic season for them. I mean, this BYU team is really solid. On the defensive side, they have absolute studs. On the offensive side, they have LJ Martin, they have Chase Roberts. They have a really, really solid overall offensive attack. For Texas Tech, this is a scenario where you could say money talks. This team last year was good. They were okay. And then they spent way more than basically anyone else in the transfer portal in terms of NIL money. And man, they brought in an unbelievable team, and it has proven to be just that. Their team is unbelievable. The defense, really my X factor here for why I have the Red Raiders beating BYU. I mean, we saw this matchup a couple weeks ago too, and this Texas Tech team dominated BYU. I mean, it wasn't even a competition. But to go deeper than that, you have this Texas Tech Red Raiders team that boasts one of the most ferocious defensive lines in all of college football. You have your edge rushers, you have Romello Height, you have David Bailey, who is arguably the best edge rusher in the country, and your interior, you have Skylar Gill Howard, you have Lee Hunter. I mean, just a phenomenal overall defensive front, and not to mention that absolute stud Heisman candidate, Jacob Rodriguez, paroling the middle of that paroling, whatever you want to call it, patrolling. There you go. I couldn't think of the word. Damn it. You have him in the middle of your defense. I mean, it's an unbelievable defense that gave them fits a couple weeks ago. I expect a lot more of the same on the offensive side. Texas Tech are going to be able to score. They have some studs on the offensive side. I don't really think it's going to be a problem. I think we're going to see more of the same of what we saw. I'm kind of sad that we saw a preview of this a couple weeks ago and it wasn't really a game, because if these two teams made it to the Big 12 championship game, and we didn't see this before, I'd be really excited about this matchup. I'd say, wow, you got Bear Backmeyer and you got Baron Morton. You have, two guys that could really sling it. You have great running backs. You have great wide receivers and tight ends. You have very, very good defenses on both sides. I would have been absolutely ecstatic for this, but it kind of soured it just a little that we saw this a couple weeks ago. And I don't think that there is a way that BYU can adjust enough to be much better than they were against Texas Tech a few weeks ago. So give me the Red Raiders in this one, and obviously guarantee them a probably a first round bye in the playoffs. Moving on, we have the SEC championship game, and this was the only other championship game that I got 100% correct. I did get the Miami Redhawks in the MAC championship. I did have the Texas Tech Red Raiders in the Big 12 championship. So, a couple along the way I did pretty well. I have Georgia and I have Alabama here, and this is a tough one because Alabama did beat Georgia earlier on in the season. I think Georgia is a much different team now than they were early in the season. And to be fair, I think Alabama are a little bit of a different team. And what I mean by that is you have Georgia, who defensively, they have really clamped down. I mean, over the last 3 games, they've given up 22 points. And two of those three games were against ranked opponents. So think about it like that. That is phenomenal. That is, playing phenomenal defense overall. On the Alabama side, you have Ty Simpson, who is one of the more exciting quarterbacks in college football. This Alabama team, though, I don't, they ran the ball pretty efficiently against Auburn. They got Jam Miller going a little bit earlier into the game, which I thought was, you know, big. I thought that was very big. So that could be a potential to keep the Georgia defense honest, but this defense is rocking and it is rolling at a scary rate. The pass rush isn't really spectacular, but you have Christian Miller, who's in the middle of that defense, who's an athletic freak. In the middle, you have CJ Allen, who's an unbelievable defensive player. You have Dalen Everett in the secondary as well. They have superstars on all three levels of the defense. And on the offensive side for Georgia, Gunnar Stockton is cool. Oscar Delp, they have Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas. They have offensive weapons for sure. This Alabama defense is only giving up about 150 passing yards a game, but they're also giving up over 150 rush yards a game, and that's where I really think this Georgia team is going to be able to exploit this Alabama Crimson Tide defense. And I think that's really going to be the big thing here. If you can eliminate, guys like LT Overton, Deontay Lawson, if you could eliminate those guys with keeping them honest against the run, I think that Georgia's going to have a very, very nice offensive game based off of play action when they throw the football. I think that it's going to be a defensive battle. I don't think this is going to be as nearly as high scoring as we've seen with these previous Georgia and Alabama meetings. I think that this is going to be a way more defensive focus just because I think both teams have better defenses, or at least more sound, better coached defenses than in years prior. But I do think I am going to give the nod to Georgia. I just think overall the rushing attack and the defense is going to be able to carry them to a victory over Ty Simpson. And Ty Simpson has gotten away with some crazy throws over the last few weeks. I don't think he's going to be able to get away with any of those throws against this Georgia defense. And I think that this could be a game where Ty Simpson does get a little bit exposed for his risk taking over the middle of the field. So give me the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship game. And then you have the Big Ten championship game. I love that retro logo from Ohio State, by the way. That's why I used it. You have Ohio State, the number 1 overall team in the country, and you have the number 2 overall team in the country in the Indiana Hoosiers. I mean, what a time to be alive as a college football fan with the Indiana Hoosiers are the second-ranked team in the country and completed a 12-0 season. Kurt Signetti is the GOAT. If he was honestly like 10 or 15 years younger, I'd say that he's definitely going to be making his way over to the NFL, but he has found his niche 100% as the Indiana Hoosiers head coach. But this is an interesting one because I feel like this could be the offense that gives Ohio State a lot of trouble. I mean, you have Omar Cooper, you have Elijah Surratt, you have Roman Hemby, you have the Heisman favorite in Fernando Mendoza. That's a lot for this Ohio State defense to manage. But then again, this is also a historically good Ohio State Buckeyes defense, where you have incredible playmakers in the middle of the defense in an Arvell Reese and a Sonny Styles, a Caleb Downs. On the outside, you have Davison Igbinosun, you have Jermaine Matthews Jr. In the middle, you have Caden McDonald. I mean, you have Caden Curry off the edge. This is a really, really talented Ohio State defense that I think it's going to be very, very difficult for the Indiana Hoosiers to really do much of anything on the offensive side, regardless of how good Fernando Mendoza plays or not. This defense is just absolutely ferocious. Then on the Indiana side, you have a good defense. You have D'Angelo Pons. You have Aiden Fisher. You have good players as well. I think they'll be able to shut down Julian Sayin for the most part, or at least enough to where this is a competitive game. But then, of course, you have on the offensive side, you have Max Clare in the middle that you have to worry about. You have to worry about Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. It's a lot. You have to worry about Bo Jackson Jr., CJ Donaldson. It's a lot. It really is a lot for any team to manage. And that's why I do think, spoiler alert for future videos, I kind of think that Ohio State speed run this national championship, because this team on the defensive side, if you isolated the Ohio State Buckeyes purely on the offense, then I think you might be able to catch them on an off day. You might be able to clamp down on Jeremiah Smith, or you might be able to clamp down on Carnell Tate and really just isolate one of the guys, even though I really wouldn't suggest doing that because both of those guys are sensational players and they're both obviously going to be first round picks. Carnell Tate this year, Jeremiah Smith next year. But on the defensive side, this is an historic defense. I mean, we are talking about one of the best defenses that college football has ever seen. And I know that you can go out there and you could say they really haven't played that many difficult teams. This was a relatively easier schedule when it's all said and done. When you look at all the opponents after the fact, this was a relatively easier schedule for this Ohio State Buckeyes team that kind of looked like they were phoning it in through half of the season. And you could argue that for sure, but this is a historic defense that just boasts so many first round picks. I think it's just going to be too much for Fernando Mendoza and this Indiana offense. I'm thinking of a score like a 27-16, where it's always sort of kind of close, but Indiana's never really within one score. So I'm going to go with like a 27-16, something around that, 27-9, something like that, where they're never quite in it with one possession, but they always kind of keep it close and they keep this team honest. So give me Ohio State to finish out this video here. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There are my predictions for every single conference championship game in college football. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.